I expected nothing more than a quiet morning at home, but the HOA had something else in mind. What began as a routine day quickly turned into one of the biggest mistakes they would ever make. The HOA president walked up to my house holding a $79 violation notice, insisting I had broken a driveway rule. She demanded immediate payment, acting as though there was no room for discussion. Instead of arguing, I calmly asked her to explain the violation and provide the official documentation. That single request completely changed her attitude. Rather than answering my question, the HOA staff parked their vehicles in a way that blocked my driveway. They announced that I wasn't allowed to move my own car until I paid the fine. They believed they were in complete control, but they had underestimated me. I immediately began recording everything. Every order they gave and every statement they made was captured on camera. The HOA president even claimed that nobody had the right to question the HOA's authority, convinced her position placed her above everyone else. That's when I decided it was time to introduce myself properly. The moment I showed my identification, their confidence vanished. I wasn't simply another homeowner. I was the chief of police for the area. Suddenly, the people pretending to exercise authority realized they had picked the wrong person. I explained that even an HOA has legal limits. Blocking someone's property without lawful authority wasn't one of its powers. That tiny $79 fine had suddenly become a much more serious issue. I contacted the proper officials so the entire incident could be documented. The HOA members quickly realized they had crossed a line. Their confidence faded as they searched through their paperwork, only to discover the violation notice wasn't supported by a clear legal rule. When I asked them to point to the exact regulation I had supposedly violated, they couldn't give a proper answer. The document was vague, poorly written, and based on assumptions that I would never challenge it. As the argument continued, neighbors began stepping outside to watch. One after another, they admitted they had experienced similar pressure from the HOA, but had always stayed quiet. For the first time, residents started speaking openly about what had been happening in the neighborhood. The HOA president called more board members, hoping extra people would intimidate me into paying the fine. Instead, they found themselves answering difficult questions. I presented records showing I had followed every neighborhood rule. Their accusations grew weaker with every piece of evidence. When she claimed I was being disrespectful toward the HOA, I reminded everyone that asking for fairness isn't disrespect. Rules should exist to protect homeowners, not to control them. Soon, the official response team arrived to review the situation. The atmosphere changed immediately. The HOA members became noticeably quieter because they knew the facts would speak for themselves. After reviewing everything, the investigators concluded that blocking my driveway had never been justified. Once the vehicles were moved, the street returned to normal, but I knew the problem was much bigger than a single fine. That evening, I started researching previous complaints and found a disturbing pattern. Many residents had reported similar treatment, but had been too intimidated to speak publicly. We organized a community meeting where everyone finally had the chance to share their experiences. Story after story revealed the same issues. Residents wanted transparency, accountability, and fair treatment instead of fear. The HOA president faced difficult questions from homeowners who had stayed silent for years. Every complaint was backed by evidence rather than emotion. It became impossible to dismiss what the community had experienced. I reminded everyone that an HOA should serve the neighborhood, not rule over it. Fair rules build trust, while unfair enforcement destroys it. As the meeting continued, the HOA leadership lost control of the discussion because the facts simply couldn't be ignored. By the end of the meeting, the community voted to make major changes. Residents demanded stronger accountability, clearer rules, and leadership that would actually represent homeowners. New guidelines were created with everyone's approval, bringing balance back to the neighborhood. Within a few weeks, the atmosphere had completely changed. Neighbors who once avoided each other began working together. Even the HOA president eventually admitted mistakes had been made and acknowledged that respect was more important than control. I kept the original $79 fine as a reminder of how one small incident exposed a much larger problem. The greatest victory wasn't proving someone wrong. It was helping people find the confidence to stand up for themselves. New residents often asked about the story, and I always gave them the same advice. Know your rights, stay respectful, and never be afraid to ask questions. My job as chief of police had always taught me that real authority exists to protect people, never to intimidate them. Today, the neighborhood is stronger than ever. People respect the rules because they understand them, not because they're afraid of them. The HOA thought they were challenging an ordinary homeowner, but instead, they uncovered a problem that needed to be fixed. Sometimes the smallest disputes reveal the biggest truths. A simple $79 fine transformed an entire community and reminded everyone that fairness, respect, and accountability should always come first. If you enjoyed this story from HOA Stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from.